So, I mean, he had no idea of it, no feel, no nothing. So you don't know. The same, I was telling Michael, he needs to go in and get checked for that. It's nothing to be scared about or ashamed about. I certainly would want to know because, again, if you were abducted and Michael was abducted, and I got a funny feeling the people who were in that car were teleported onto a UFO and maybe been abducted. I mean, that is really scary. Now, haven't you been having strange things happening, dreams, communications, and all this stuff since Mount Adams?
I have had a number of communications and dream experiences, mostly when I'm waking up from sleep in the morning. I have certain messages, and not only that, there have been a number of messages and pieces of knowledge that I've just known since the incident that I was never taught, at least not on this earth, as far as I know. That's common with some other experiencers, that there are things they're taught that just come up from their subconscious and memory, but they don't know how they were taught that.
Interesting. But what type of communications are you getting? What are you being told? I mean, is it something that's important? That is it just for you, or is it for mankind, or for what? What is going on? And I don't mean to be, really nosy, but I do think we should know, because maybe, again, you were abducted, and maybe, you're getting information that could be really important to all of us.
Yeah, I can share some of the messages. I don't think many of them are just personal to me, so I can share them with the audience. And even some of them do involve the whole planet. One of the lessons that I've been taught from my dream state teachings, I believe, is about time and concepts of time, and that time isn't really real, at least not the way that most people think of it. Because, first of all, imagine the globe of the Earth. We have this map of the globe and 24 time zones around the Earth that in reality are actually imagined by humans. They aren't real physical time borders or barriers, because in reality there's only this one moment in time. It's past, present, and future as I understand it, but there's not, let's see, it's 8:16 p.m. Pacific Standard Time where you and I are, Gary, I believe you're in the Pacific Standard Time Zone.
Oh, yeah, I only live probably about 30 miles from you.
Yeah, so I went to New Zealand almost a year ago, for example, and I believe New Zealand time zone is about 14 hours ahead of West Coast time zone here in America. So with that, it's like it's 8:16 p.m. here, Thursday, January 24th. But that doesn't mean that the people in New Zealand in a time zone ahead of us have actually traveled into the future at all. We're all experiencing this one moment. If a meteor hit the Earth right now, which I hope doesn't happen, at least not a big one, something hit the Earth right now, it would all be this one moment that would be significant to us. Not these different time zones. Time zones are just a way of humans measuring time, but in reality, time isn't the construct that we think it is, not the limiting construct. And even beyond the Earth, time doesn't really exist except for within the reality of planets and solar systems and the slow rotation and progression of galaxies, at least in our universe. After you get outside of that paradigm of the galaxies, what time is there really? It's just something happening. Kind of food for thought.
Yeah, because I look at, there's no such thing as time. Time is only what we place on it. So I mean, yeah, that's kind of eerie right there too. Now, have you had any where they've been talking about like where, you know, any dooms thing happening bad, or anything they're sharing to you that they feel that you should be sharing to other people? Do you see the future? Are they telling you anything about the future, about Earth changes, anything?
Yeah, I don't want to claim to be a prophet, but I have gotten visions and messages about what could happen, not necessarily what definitely will happen, but things that could happen depending on us and what we do. And a lot of that relates to what I call the pyramid, or the pyramid of light, which I visited a few times astrally that I remember. It's deep under Mount Adams in a cavern in the ground, I believe created a long, long time ago by volcanic activity. But it's this big open cavern with a pyramid that came from a craft that arrived actually almost middle of last August. And that is related to something else that I had first seen and been told about last January. But this pyramid is basically a perfect white glowing pyramid. I would estimate about 15 feet tall at the apex, at the very top. So big enough that you could stand inside of it, certainly, or at least potentially. This pyramid is a device for measuring the Earth's frequencies and magnetic, all kinds of things, and also giving feedback to the beings around the pyramid. And what I've learned from this pyramid and my memories is that the Earth right now is very thick. Think of it as Mother Earth, or a living being, and almost 8 billion parasites on it. Or not, we're not necessarily parasites, not all of us, but one of the major problems that is making Earth sick right now is the growing division and cutthroat competition in the political and social spheres, especially with politics in the last decade or two, that has gotten much more divided than it ever has been in history. Or
more dishonest than it ever has been.
Yeah, exactly. There's, of course, been wars on this planet, terrible tragedies, but one of the major energetic problems of the Earth that is contributing to an increase in volcanic and seismic activity that we've been seeing lately is this growing division of humanity. And a lot of things on the news that people watch every day are contributing to many people around America and the world thinking that the world is coming to an ending, or that certain people may need to be taken out. Not that I'm recommending that, but that there's just tragedies happening everywhere and the world is coming to an end and stuff like that. That's of course not true. This is only a change period that we're going through on the Earth, and that the Earth is going through itself, which, from what I've come to understand, will turn out into an eventual evolved humanity after we get through this change period. But what could contribute to increased volcanic activity, even to some more destructive proportions, is this continued division and negativity and mental sickness of the world, of people on Earth.
Well, you know what, Troy?
Now,
Troy, it has more than just that. I mean, there's a couple other things going on. We are treating a lot has to do with our mental being, how our thoughts are. If everybody's not in a positive situation, because all this, I mean, right now there's so many things going on. I mean, we got earth changes going on. We got politics going on. We got wars going on. People are in the back of their mind. Maybe they don't go around talking about it every day, but they're scared. You know, it's more scared than they were when we were, in the Cold War, which we are definitely in one right now with China, like you wouldn't believe. But you know what? You can't sit there. I look at our planet as a living being. So what we're doing is we're sucking the blood out of the planet oil. We're sucking that blood out of the ground, right? And now, after we suck all the blood out in one area, right, we gotten smart. We pump water into that area. Okay, now that causes that area to be unstable. Then about 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 100 years later, all of a sudden, they get huge sinkholes. The ground starts dropping. Then all of a sudden, you start seeing volcanoes going off, more earthquakes. That is going on all over the place. We got Antarctica that is breaking up and melting. And we are living right now in a time where there can be major changes. Like, a lot of people don't realize the water in the Antarctica, right, is heated up from the equator. That water keeps that current keeps it, keeps Europe, mainly like the UK, France, Russia, from turning into a deep freeze. Now, if that stalls, it won't take very long, and all of a sudden, Europe is in a deep freeze. And I remember back reading when I was a kid about what happened in Russia around the 1900s. They went through a real cold, earth changes, where they went into, like, the temperature was freezing during day and night for a long period of time. People were so cold, they would rip the flooring out of their housing. They take the walls and burn it. They take their furniture and they would burn it just to stay warm. And a lot of people perished because they couldn't stay warm. And it wouldn't take much for this to happen. So our planet is not very happy with us. And then we have our politicians out here, right? It kind of like, I don't believe it. Okay? Well, they have to look at our water level. It's going up in Florida. It's going up on the East Coast. When a big hunk, again, a few days ago, broke away, bigger than a lot of states. Now, that is now going to be one of the biggest icebergs floating around in the ocean ever. Now, when that starts melting, then that's going to raise the sea level all the more. Our Earth, we have basically screwed ourselves. So that's why I'm trying to ask you, if they talk to you about what can we do to either slow it down or help it, or is this what our world's going to end up being, a dead planet, at least with us on it?
I would say this does not have to become a dead planet. From what I've remembered and experienced, the beings involved in the Mount Adams incident and that are continuing contact with me and I believe some of the other members of our team, they seem to actually care about us and the Earth, at least to some degree. So they don't want this planet to die, and I don't think they want to dominate us either.